This guy got a 1600 on his SAT? He's about to go pro in tennis, too. And he's jacked. How is this fair? I spend 10 hours a day watching content online, watching motivational videos. I even watch Andrew Tate. How come I don't got any of this stuff? Now, I'm sure you don't share this exact feeling, but the idea of scrolling on your phone versus actually doing something about your goals is something we can all relate with. Obviously, not everything you're seeing on your phone is bad, but I would bargain that most of the time, there's something much more productive you could be doing. Now, I don't watch motivational videos from Andrew Tate, nor do I watch a ton of content. Most of the content I do consume is done in small pieces throughout the day. Particularly, this is true during the school year. And the reason that I don't spend hours on my phone to the same degree that I used to is because I realize that avoiding scrolling helps me avoid one of the worst feelings of a high school student. That is burnout. So with that, I'm Lodrin, you're a bunch of nerds, and welcome to my video on a guide to avoiding burnouts. Now, burnout does suck, and the reason that we get burnout is simply because we overwork ourselves. So the key to avoiding it is to figure out how to make work less work, or just to take less work on in general. Now, I know that's very confusing, so let me give you an example. For a moment here, I'm going to brag a bit. I'm not saying what I did in these events, but I took part in a lot of activities this year. I took 6 AP courses, along with a CL course. I took part on my team's state ranked tennis team. I was part of our team's top 10 in Ohio academic challenge team. I competed in speech and debates. We don't have to talk about results there. But all this to say, I really did a ton this year. But not once did I turn in a late assignment. Not once did I feel sad to go to school. And not once did I get burned out. And that's because I figured out many tricks that can help you as a high schooler right now to avoid burnout in the same way that I did. Without further ado, let's take a look at my 10 biggest tips to avoiding burnout in the same way that I managed to do in my junior year of high school. This first one is twofold. It's organization. The first part of this is what a germaphobe might think about, but I want you to be even cleaner than a germaphobe, because the first part of organization is simply living in a clean space. Because when you have stuff all around you, empty Red Bull cans, lots of trash, clothes all over the ground, you're naturally not going to be able to be as productive. These things are distracting. They are a further burden on you that you must do later. And if you're living in a messy space, science has shown on numerous occasions that you're simply not going to be working at your full potential. Therefore, cleaning and just staying in a neat space is extremely important. But the other part of organization is arguably more important. This is organization of your schoolwork. I took a lot of hard classes, and as such, I had homework nearly every single night. So keeping up with what I had and doing it all when it was due was key. And to keep up with this, I use Canvas Calendar because we use Canvas as our app at our school that we do all of our schoolwork on. Now, your school might use something different. You might use Google Meet. I'm not quite sure. But whatever your school does do, you need to stay organized and on top of that. If you're the type of person that likes physical copies, using a physical planner is extremely nice. I used to use one all through middle school, and it helped me because seeing it written out on paper reminded me that I had to do it. As such, crossing it out was also really satisfying. But you don't even need to have something physical. As long as you have something online just telling you what you have to do that night, you should be all set for getting this work done on time. But that's just the first part. Because what's organization if you're not going to actually do the work? Which is why the second way that I think you can avoid burnout is by developing a love for learning. And by developing a love for learning, it's going to make it a lot easier to do all of your work in school. I'm going to take you to a website real quick. One of my favorite of all time. It is called Jetpunk. Now, the point of Jetpunk is that they have quizzes on just about anything. This is a classic, elements of the periodic table. They have the U.S. states. They have They have the whole United States. But this one where you're clicking the states. Basically, they have anything you can want in geography, science, or even pop culture. One of my favorite quizzes on here is every Survivor contestant ever. I get about 95% on this. I'm not quite there yet. I always forget a few from the first couple seasons. But what makes this website so cool is that it's fun. Last summer, I was not super into school, but I spent hours on this website developing a love for geography, developing a love for history, and just liked memorizing things because this website does it in such a good way. Of course, there are other ways to do this as well, but by learning about your interests, you should be able to, as a student, more easily keep up with school because you already have this experience from Jetpunk. And I know this sounds weird. How will learning about the movies I like to watch help me learn about English and the books that we read in English? Well, it sounds strange at first, but I saw this have a huge effect on me. For example, after I learned all the countries of the world, it made it a lot easier once I was in school to simply learn about things completely unrelated to countries. Like when I was reading The Great Gatsby, I understood more about World War I because I knew the places in which Gatsby had fought. Now, the third trick, and this is one of my favorites, is to set realistic goals. Because to be honest, you're not going to be one of the best. And I know that's hard to hear. And at first, I had a lot of trouble with this. Early junior year, I was so confident. I was thinking about my standardized test scores. I was confident I'd do great on all my AP classes. I even thought I'd make varsity on tennis. How much of a fool was I? But realistic goals can be helpful because unlike these goals that I set, they can actually happen. For example, we're going to go to another one of my favorite websites, which we'll be visiting a lot of these today. This is NAQT. This is basically the website that tracks all of the stats from Academic Challenge, or Quiz Bowl as it is more widely known. Now, I've been competing in Quiz Bowl for 6 years now. This next season will be my last, but I love this activity. However, I can never be like these people at the top. For example, this kid Maximilian, per game, he is scoring on 10 to 12 toss-ups. Me, I get at most 4. So realistically, I should never shoot for the top because I know I can never make it there. Next year at the high school national championship tournament, my goal is top 100. And this seems low, like, oh, you're only the 100th best trivia player in the country. But what you have to realize is that even if you're not going for the very top, you're still going to be one of the more highly academic achievers in your school and in your state if you're putting in the work. Yes, you may not be able to score 1600s or even 1500s on your SAT. Yes, some of your AP scores may come out of 4s when they might be 5s. Yes, maybe you may play doubles on JV instead of singles on varsity like you may have tried. But even when you fail at your goals, they're going to be a lot closer if you're aiming for top 100 than if I'm aiming for number 1. And that is why setting realistic goals is my third tip for avoiding burnout. Now my fourth, this looks very weird. Make nerdy friends. Well, if you're watching this video, I guess you're a nerd. I'm a nerd too. It's something I freely admit, but it's something that many people struggle with because most nerds are quiet, most nerds struggle to socialize, and I'm very much included in this. This last year, with all the work I was doing in school, I had very little time outside of it to hang out with friends. And some people could never give up their social time. And that's a sacrifice you'll have to make if you want to avoid burnout. Because if you're just going out with your friends 3 or 4 nights a week, that's 3 or 4 nights a week that you're going to get behind on your schoolwork and pile up work for the future. One of the main causes of burnout. Therefore, making nerdy friends can be helpful because these friends are not going to be friends that you're necessarily spending hours outside of school with. These are friends that you can talk to in class. A big example of this is AP Seminar. Now I'm going to make a separate video about all my different AP classes, but for AP Seminar, it was the 8th period class of my day. And I'll be honest, I did very, very little work in AP Seminar. And that's because in the other 7 periods, every single day, without fail, I would get burnout. I was coming off of AP Calc and AP Chem, so I was never ready to do work in AP Seminar. But what helped is that I had friends in AP Seminar, friends that liked me like me, wanted to do the hardest classes and wanted to try hard in school. So spending time with them in AP seminar would help recharge me, it would get me prepared, and it would benefit me for the future. Now, if I was a quiet person who never spoke up, just tried to do all my work in silence, I would never be able to get all of my seminar work done simply because I didn't have the motivation in AP seminar. Now you can make nerdy friends in a wide variety of ways. For me, this was speech and debate. I took part in 13 Saturday tournaments this year, and this was one of the greatest things that ever happened to me. I met amazing new people. One of my friends is even in this live stream footage, as he did quite well in extemporaneous speaking, and I just loved speech and debate. What speech and debate also did for me is it made me friends that I'd never really talked to before because I simply didn't talk to people before. But these friends were the same kids that were in my hard classes because speech and debate is such a nerd-based activity. So because nerds are the ones that you're going to be with in these classes, I would highly advise making friends with them and being friendly. That way when you're in school doing the work, you can be with people you like. Now this fifth one can be taken in a wide variety of ways. Keep a firm foundation. What I think this means for me is remember why you're doing what you're doing. And I don't know why you're doing it. For me, my Lord comes first, Jesus Christ, but I understand that that's not for everybody. And if you might not have a faith-based foundation, you have it somewhere else. Are you shooting for Harvard? Are you shooting for a local school are you shooting for college in general? Are you shooting for a high-ranking corporate job? Or do you just want to become a teacher? But knowing what you want to do with your life is going to help with burnout. Because on days that I may not have wanted to do my homework, what I remembered is that my dream is to be a chemistry professor. And to become a chemistry professor, I need to work hard in school, and I need to learn these things, and I need to prepare for my future. So by remembering why I do things, both for the Lord and for my future, I can always remember that there's something greater than this present time. And remembering that makes it easier to throw a few hours away to do some schoolwork. So my fifth tip is keeping a firm foundation for this reason. Now the sixth, and probably the hardest for you, is to avoid the doom scroll. And I know this is super difficult. For me personally, this required blocking Instagram and TikTok and heavily limiting how much time I can be on YouTube. And I'm still on it too much. When you're doom scrolling, it may seem like you're relaxing and de-stressing. It may even seem like a way to get rid of burnout because you're doing something you enjoy. However, doom scroll is not going to help because it's just simply addicting. The more you scroll, the more you watch videos, the more you watch content, the more you look at your friends, you're just going to feel worse and worse about yourself and not be any more motivated to do work. Why are you on YouTube trying to get motivation when you could be off YouTube doing the actual work you need motivation for? What really showed me this is one day I was sitting watching a video, and then I went and watched another video. And then I thought, I want to go watch another one from that last guy. But I completely forgot what video I had watched just 3 minutes beforehand because I was scrolling so mindlessly, just watching video after video, that I had no clue what I was even doing anymore. And that's what made me realize maybe, just maybe, there are better things I can do than doom scroll. Which brings me to the seventh point, which is to take up good hobbies. Not doom scrolling, I can tell you that. For me, this has come in many different forms. I enjoy puzzling as a good way to de-stress. I think jigsaw puzzles are amazing. I've recently taken up speed cubing. I'm trying to learn the CFOP method right now. But whatever it is for you, find a hobby that takes intensive work, but not too much work. Something that's relaxing, but not mindless. So doom scrolling is too mindless. However, if your big hobby is putting all of your effort into weightlifting, that might not be great for burnout. Now, I do think you should lift weights, but when you're looking at burnout specifically, the exhaustion you're going to get after a workout is likely going to just contribute to more burnout. Therefore, good hobbies such as puzzling for me and Jeopardy for me have been huge. I love Jeopardy, which I also love Quiz Bowl, so it kind of makes sense. But Jeopardy is something that I can turn on. The questions are difficult, they make me think, but at the same time, I'm not watching it to be competitive. I'm not watching it because I could beat the people on the show, because let's be honest, I can't. This is even a score website I've been using to keep track of how I do in each game of Jeopardy! It's not very good, I'll tell you that. Moving on to my 8th point, which is enjoying the process, which is something I developed in AP US History. Let me set the stage for you. My 10th grade year, I had one goal: make it through the year, play some tennis, and have fun. But you know what? I wasn't having any fun. I was struggling in school. I was struggling socially. I had some major issues at home just with my working out and health related issues. And it was rough. But what really brought me out of this was realizing that every single part of my classes was beneficial. And I really saw this in A-Push. As I started learning and stuff, as I started learning stuff from my history teacher that I knew I would never use again. Yet I couldn't look away. Because I realized that every single name, every single event I learned about United States history was going to help me in one way or another because it helps my brain. And yes, this sounds extremely cliche. Your brain is a muscle. You must exercise it daily. Now, I love anatomy, and your brain is not actually a muscle. It's made of nervous tissue, not muscular tissue. However, the idea still makes a certain ounce of sense. The more time you spend learning, the better you'll be at learning in the future. The more you apply yourself to listening to a lecture, the easier it will be to listen to a lecture in the future when it truly matters. If you're trying to become a nuclear engineer, for example, English class is not going to help. Reading all about The Help, which is a very good book, but it's not going to help in your nuclear engineering career. However, if you apply yourself to remembering all the names, remembering the events, you're training your brain to better memorize information. And if you think of it this way, you're going to be able to avoid that dozing off in class that so many of us do. And yes, this is going to be hard, but the more you try to listen to lectures, the easier it will become. The more you try to become friendly with your teachers, which I don't think you should be friends with your teachers, obviously, but the more you try to apply yourself by raising your hand and actively being a part of the classroom conversation, the easier it's going to be in the future to learn things. And thus, the best way for me was this number 8. This is the main way I avoided burnout, was because I realized that every moment of school was not work, it was training. And every moment of homework was not work either. It was just preparing me for the work that I'm going to do once I become an adult. Because things don't get easier. Yes, your school year might be hard, but as an adult, you're going to have these same things. So by applying yourself now, you're simply setting yourself up for the future. Now, sorry, I really rambled up about that one, but let's go on to the next one, which is to consume healthy content. You're still going to watch YouTube. I still watch YouTube. I think YouTube is great. But you have to be careful about what you're watching. Now, I'm a little hypocritical about this because I just released an AP score reaction. But I think that's one of the worst things you can watch. Watching things like AP score reactions, or people hitting new PRs on bench, or people just living out great parts of their life is not always the best because it breeds jealousy, not motivation. I'm not watching an AP score video, seeing somebody score a 5 on AP physics, which I think I'm very unlikely to do this year, and being like, good for them. That's going to really help me get a 5. No, I'm getting mad at these people. I'm feeling like their scores are making me look worse. But that's a terrible mindset. And this applies to all parts of YouTube. Don't watch things to get jealous. Watch things because you enjoy watching them and because they're entertainment. So from now on, when I'm watching nerdy videos, I'm no longer watching people go over their extracurriculars that got them into Harvard. No, I'm watching a Veritasium video. I'm watching a Vsauce video. I'm watching a video that's teaching me about a topic simply for fun. And now finally, you have to find your passion. Because burning out is so easy if you don't enjoy what you're doing. And all of these things on here are great. But if you don't have a passion for learning, and you don't have a passion for school in some sense, you're not going to be able to learn. Now, this passion doesn't have to be enjoyment for school itself. It could be in an activity. I have a friend who is extremely passionate in engineering. And yes, he takes engineering classes at my high school, but most of his time is spent out of the classroom, building things with his 3D printer, doing jobs for his friends. He built a turret that shoots you with a Nerf gun automatically just by passing it. And these things that he's doing are amazing for him because it's what he wants to do. He's not going to burn out on school because he knows once he gets home, he has something he can do. For me, this passion is Quiz Bowl. I love it. I study it. I breathe it. I spend every moment of the day, not every moment obviously, but I spend many moments of every day thinking about Quiz Bowl because I enjoy it. And that gives me motivation during school that the things I'm doing are going to help me later in life be able to pursue maybe more trivia. For example, my dream school has an academic challenge program. When I go there, I'm most likely going to compete there in college. So what I'm doing right now in high school, the learning I'm doing in school, the independent practice I'm doing out of school, is going to help me get a better spot on that team in the future. Therefore, the most beneficial thing I can do right now is apply myself. And the reason I'm not going to burn out is because to do what I want, to develop my passion, which is trivia, it's going to take me paying attention in school. So yes, your passion might be football. And yes, that may not involve paying attention in English class. But at least get through English class. At least motivate yourself through English class with the idea that after school, I get to work on my passion. I get to play football, dude. I get to work as hard as I can simply because I want to. And that is the best way to avoid burnout for most people is to develop a passion. So as we look back at these, for me personally, I'd say enjoying the process was the most beneficial step, but for you, it might be something else. Feel free to leave in the comments one of these topics you want me to go more in depth into. Because as long as this video is, I have so much more to say because this is what I've lived this last year. When you take as many classes and you strive for as good of grades as many of the people watching this video are, it's going to be difficult and it's going to eat up a lot of your time. But these things are going to help, and eventually you'll be able to make it through. Now I know I got really preachy this video, like, oh, who's this guy all high and mighty telling us how to avoid burnout? But it's because I'm passionate, because I care about teaching. That's why I want to be a professor. I do want to do research, but I also want to impart knowledge on the next generation. Learning about these things and learning in school is one of the best things that a high schooler can do. So if I helped you just a little bit to avoid burnout in this video, then I succeeded. If only one person responds to this video with a comment that this helped them, then this video, this long yap session from me, is a complete success. Sorry about that. It's been a lot of talking, obviously. So with that, I'm going to leave us off there. Feel free to leave in the comments other videos you want. This was suggested in my comments by a person. Thank you for your comment. That was very nice of you. I will do more videos in the future, hopefully on Quiz Bowl. That is my main passion, as I discussed. But I'm also great to make videos about all kinds of stuff. I could do some SAT videos, maybe. I consider myself pretty decent at that test. And just in general, I think there's a lot more that I can do with this channel, and I just hope you guys want to watch. So with that, please like and subscribe. That's the YouTuber thing, obviously. And I'll see you guys next time.